Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be going to the Kennedy Space Center and then going to Cocoa Beach, or I think it's Cocoa Beach. I have my waterproof case and all that, so I will meet you guys there. See you guys in a bit. Okay guys, we're here at the Kennedy Space Center, and here's like a fountain thing, and we're just going in here.
Hey, look, our shoes back.
So I just skipped the little walk in here. And then it's like a moon kind of looking thing. So we're gonna go and get past security, and I will be in there in a minute. Okay, we just got past security, and I'm not going to do much recording here because it's not really too much to see, like on the inside and that. Well, on the outside at least. So, there's a wall here with a bunch of astronauts. It's a bunch of fake rockets. I think they're fake at least. It's a bunch of buildings and yeah. This is the basics of the Space Center. So, rocket, laying down, rocket, yeah. It's basically all the rockets. It's a bush, a building, and I'm gonna pause the recording until I find something cool, and I'll be back in a little bit. Capsule thing. Capsule space thing. Re-entering the atmosphere. So there's a rocket here. There's another rocket there. Yeah. Be back in a little bit. Apparently, I'm gonna have lunch with an astronaut, and we're in the waiting building here. Hello. There's a space monkey. Apparently. So I'm gonna pause the recording, and I may videotape the lunch with an astronaut, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm gonna pause the recording and I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, we just got done having lunch with an astronaut. Now we're gonna take a selfie in front of a sign. So yeah, we're gonna take a selfie, yeah. We just got done eating lunch with an astronaut. We went in here. We didn't go in the spaceship yet because we have like a bus tour thing, but selfie. We'll get over here. So I have a little selfie there. So yeah, we're gonna find some Mars rovers, and we'll be back in just a second. Okay, we're here.
First, there's the International Space Station. Did you realize that humans have consistently lived aboard the ISS for more than 17 years?
Pause the video to read that.
From this orbiting space laboratory for many years to come. Next is our closest celestial neighbor, the Moon. The last time we were there was 1972. There's still so much to do to explore. You might want to visit a rogue asteroid or a comet. How cool would something like that be? And then there's Mars. We have our robots scoping things out. Which of these destinations do you feel most closely lives up to NASA's vision of space exploration and discovery? Any ideas? Let's take a look and find out. Yes, you're going to Mars. Now imagine standing on the red planet, millions and millions of miles away from the Earth, looking up into the sky to see a tiny blue speck where you were born. Before you can experience this moment, you have to answer 3 questions. Can you survive the long trip to Mars? How will you live on the surface of that planet? And can you return to Earth safely? Sounds pretty difficult, doesn't it? In fact, these are some of the most complex problems that humankind has ever had to tackle, and NASA cannot do this alone. We're going to need your help. Now, the trip to Mars is long and dangerous, so we're not going to make it in one giant leap. We have to start with smaller steps first. These other destinations will serve as improving grounds to solving the challenges in the works to literally redirect a nearby asteroid into orbit around our moon. I know that sounds like science fiction, but you're going to use that asteroid to perfect the capabilities for your Mars mission. You might even find clues to the formation of our solar system there. And meanwhile, the moon is going to act as a perfect dress rehearsal for Mars. They both have far less gravity than the Earth, and they're both freezing. So, now you know where you're going, you need to figure out how to make that happen. And let's go ahead and stop Mars there. Good. Here's your launching point.
I'm gonna go and see some rovers.
Now, from out here, you get a sense of just how fragile and special our little planet really is. By exploring Mars, we might better understand our own home, our past, and our possible future. But before we can push beyond the boundaries of planet Earth, we have to push beyond the boundaries of our current science and technology. Right now, gravity is punishing on the human body. Your bones thin, your muscles shrink, your immune system weakens. We have to figure out how to keep you healthy on that trip. And even with our more powerful new rockets, you can't take everything that you need. You live off the land. Back to basics, learning to grow food, make water, build shelter.
Legs.
There are abundant resources to sustain life. On Mars, you have to conserve and reuse everything. And I mean everything. Now all these things are being done to help us get to Mars, but human space exploration isn't just about pushing gravity. It will build a deep need to understand our world and to explore the nature we of human life. That's pretty awesome. We know where we're going. Let's see what NASA's doing today.
Let's watch different rovers. Pause the video and read that. There's this guy here. Another awesome rover there. Pause the video, read that.
Remember the movie with Whitney?
Pause the video and read these things because they're cool. And then here's the big one. This is the one that brings home all the samples. It's a sample arm, camera for a head, wheels. This one's powered by a weird battery thing. And then this one here is powered by solar energy. So I'll go to Mars. And then that one is also powered by solar energy. This one landed 2004. This one landed 1997. And this one landed 2012. So awesome. Look at these rovers. And I think these are the actual size of them. Pause the video and read these. It's so cute. It's so tiny and cute. And then there's this big one.
Or is this the next?
Hulky big one
This
here.
one landed in 2012. This is the one. This is the Curiosity.
And it's cool things. So, just
We don't know what the universe is made of. We don't know what the limits of the universe are. We don't know what dark matter is.
kind of want to do this. So I'm going to get someone to film and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so we tried this out and it wasn't working right. So we have to like, I don't think there's actually a missing mission or something. So we're going to go and try and do the computer thing. Or, oh, there's a game over there actually.
There's a game over there.
Okay, so we're gonna go over there and we'll be back in just a second. Okay, we're gonna... Okay, you try that, I'll film.
Temperature or windstorms? Let's do windstorms.
About ready? When is it after ready?
I want to try something.
It's about 10 minutes, so we're going to have to go over to the bus tour next.
Okay. Okay. So we're gonna go on the bus tour and I might do a little clip of that, I'm not sure. But I'll see you guys there. Gonna be going on a bus tour now.
Wait, let me get
On the
my
bus
thing
here.
up. All right, folks. Thought I'd tell you where we are. This is Kennedy Space Center here, 140,000 acres. This is Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. A lot of early spaceflight took place here. Alan Shepard, John Glenn, early Apollo missions, that kind of thing. This is all one area, really. We call this the Cape. If you've ever seen a space movie or television show, that's the way they refer to it. And that is how we refer to it, too. But we're two separate agencies, technically. We're here, and we're going to go out to the river. We're going to go out to the active launch pads, show you where the launch pads are. Then we'll take you on a quick trip through the industrial area. Then we'll take you out by the launch pads, 39A, 39B, the most famous pads in the world. Everybody that ever left for the moon left from 39A. Wow. Then we'll take you out to the vehicle assembly building. And you guys will get off the bus, take pictures there. And then our tour ends at the Saturn V Center. That's where the moon rocket is. That's where you'll get off the bus for the last time. So when we do get there, make sure you take everything with you. Because when you're done in here, you get another bus, come back here. And that takes about 10 minutes, but I'll remind you of that when we get there. So there's 3 stops. We're going to be at the river, between the pads, and the VAB. Now, ask questions of anything you like, take pictures of anything you like. The only safety note is, when the bus is moving, do stay seated. I only mention that because you haven't lived until you've seen 60 people on one side of a bus trying to get a picture of an alligator. And I have. The bus is leaning like this. It's like Black Friday and a stack of cheap televisions. You guys know what happens then, don't you? Right, that kind of thing. So, we may see some alligators. Saw some earlier. There are a lot of them out here, so you'll probably see some. Yeah, I know. Everybody, look, that's all anybody really cares about, young fellas, alligators. Rocket launches, nobody cares about that. Alligators. You can have a rocket going up, somebody yells gator, they'll all turn around. They will, they will. We should make rockets that look like alligators. Everybody be happy. So anyway, make yourself comfortable. And this tour is a lot about our past, but it's also about our future. There's a lot of new things going on out here. We're doing things in new ways. We've never done them. There's a lot of new companies coming out to do business in space. There really is a new space age underway. And you'll see evidence of it. We'll point it out to you as we go. So it's a very exciting time to be here. So we're not just big museum. We really are very active and very moving into the future with a lot of things. So hope you enjoy the tour. Everybody comfortable temperature-wise? Yes. All right, good deal. I'd like you to meet Mary Pat. Mary Pat's our escort. She's going to get us where we're going safely, but more importantly, Mary Pat controls the air conditioning. Let's be nice to her. Yes, indeed. So hopefully you folks had a chance to see Atlantis over there. If you haven't, make sure you do. It's the real shuttle. And I'll point out that big blue building over there says Blue Origin on it. That is an aerospace company. And they're going to build rockets in there, build engines, and they're going to launch them on a big spaceport they're building over on the Cape. Now, Blue Origin is owned by Amazon. So if you bought anything on Amazon, technically you're partially responsible for that building because, you know, that's where all that money goes. And that's just one company. SpaceX is already here. Some of you folks are familiar with it, especially you folks in California. And they are building out here. They are building new facilities out here all the time. Other companies are coming on board. But first I want to talk about what's important out here, and that is, of course, alligators. Anybody see any coming in? Yes. Oh, you did? Hey, Mary Pat, we can turn around and go home. We're done. Everybody seen a gator? Our mission's accomplished. No, but sometimes you'll see them in these retention ponds over here. Yeah, they're usually in the water when it gets hot like this. They usually hide out in the water. But we'll keep our eyes peeled for them. We may see some over here on this body of water over here. So if you do, yell out. Make sure everybody can see it. But we do have about 6,000 alligators. Yep. We don't know exactly how many. That's just a guess. We might know, but we sent a guy to count them. What happened to him? We don't know. He never came back. So I don't know. Anyhow, if you guys were in the rocket garden, you get to see a rocket, a real live rocket there. And the rocket we have is a Mercury Redstone. That's this rocket here. And that's the same type of rocket that took Alan Shepard into space back in 1961. He was the first American to go up. And he went up there about 15 minutes. That was it. Not a very big rocket, you can tell. And he only went up about 110 miles. He went out about 300, splashed down in the ocean around the Bahamas. Didn't orbit. But 20 days after he did that, John Kennedy said, "We're going where?" The moon, that's right. And NASA said, "What do you mean the moon? We just got to the Bahamas." What? Why are we going to do that? But the rocket's got to get a lot bigger than that to get you to the moon, and they did. But by the time the Saturn V's came into the picture, they were so big we didn't have room on Cape Canaveral to launch them. So we had to buy all of this land just to build the Apollo rockets and send them to the moon. All of this was built just for the Apollo program. And that is Kennedy Space Center. And that, by the way, is all we do. We used to be called the Launch Operations Center. All we do is launch. Anybody know who takes over when they leave the tower? Houston Mission Control, that's right. And there's enough work to go around. Last year we had 27 launches. Next year, well, last year we had 27. This year we'll have 45. Next year we'll have 60. And it just keeps getting busier and busier. They want to launch a rocket every other day out here at some point in time. And believe it, I believe that could happen with all the companies that are here and coming. So, by the way, those of you with actual topography where you live, we don't have any of that in Florida. This is the highest point in Florida right here. You guys call it an overpass, we call it a mountain. If it snowed, we'd ski on it, but it never does. But you do get to see the vehicle assembly building over there, and that is the building everybody recognizes. You've seen it in the movies and television shows and stuff. But there it is. We're going to go right in front of it after a while. You'll be right out in front of it later on, but just so you know where it is. And this is called the industrial area. Now, it's not a very exciting name because what happens here isn't very exciting. This is where all the paperwork gets done. These are where all the contractors, administrators, things like that, that's where all the business gets done. All the fun stuff's out on the launch pads. That's where the cameras go. So they're not here, obviously. But some of these buildings, a lot of them were built back in the 60s. And when you look at them, they look like they were built in the early 60s. No doubt about it. Some of them are more modern. But But this whole area here, we're in the process of kind of modernizing, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when we come back this way. But we have to kind of spruce up a lot of this area out here because it hasn't been really gone over in about 40 years, so we're trying to modernize stuff. But again, we'll talk about that later on. You'll see the headquarters building. That's up ahead here. That's where, of course, like I said, all the administrators are, and Bob Cabana is our administrator. He works in this office. Of course, it's a weekend, not too many people out here today. You won't see a lot of cars out here. But generally there's about 13,000 people working out here at any given time. But Bob Cabana's office up on the top floor where all the nice windows are. And this was built probably about 1964, so it had a fallout shelter. Of course, you had to have that during the Cold War. And you'll notice there aren't any windows on the first floor. We didn't want anybody just walking by stealing our moon secrets, so we didn't put any windows in on the first floor. This is our new headquarters building, and it's just that. It's just newer, just bigger, more efficient, more ergonomic, and it's just a modern building. That's really what it is, replacing the old one. And this is the O&C building, operations and checkout. Now, you guys may have seen this building. You guys ever see the astronauts getting on the bus when they all waved to everybody and said, well, that's where they leave from. That's where they get on the bus from. The crew quarters are up on the third floor. They come down and go out a big bay in the back and get on the bus and drive out to the pad. But that's also where they check out the equipment they take into space. All the spacecraft have to get checked out in there, and that's what they do. And this is the Space Station Processing Facility, otherwise known as the SSPF. And that's where they monitor experiments up on the space station. And the space station tells them what they need. They put together those resupply missions and send them stuff they get. They have 6 astronauts up there. They just launched 3. 3 came home, 3 went up. And now we have 6 astronauts up there. There's 3 Americans, 2 Russians, and a German astronaut. And the German astronaut is a commander. He is running the show up there for the next 6 months or so. And that's usually how they stay. And they all take turns doing that in all the different countries. So, but a question I get, maybe you folks are wondering, why did all this stuff happen here? Why not California, Wyoming, New Jersey, Alabama? Why not? Why here? Well, the space age and the missile age grew up together. Without one, you wouldn't have the other. So for all the craziness the Cold War brought us, we did develop the technology we used to get to the moon all that time. Now, the missile age did not start here. The missile age started at the end of World War II in New Mexico. We brought Wernher von Braun, about 130 other scientists over from Europe, and put them in New Mexico, said, teach us how to build rockets. And they did. Trouble is, though, a lot of those rockets didn't stay on course very well. And New Mexico is landlocked. They have neighbors on all their sides. So sooner or later, you're going to have some embarrassing incidents with your neighbors. And we did, particularly Mexico. So we decided it's a good idea to launch over the water, because we have 14,000 miles of ocean out here. And fish don't have congressmen to complain to. So this became the long-range proving ground for all the missiles they tested back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And spaceflight, all that was just an outcropping of the missile age. Just took the warheads off, put capsules on it, and put people up there. And that started here too. The nice weather we have helps. And also you get a boost from the rotation of the Earth at this latitude, because you're moving in that direction anyway. So you want to go with the spin of the Earth. You don't want to fight it. It takes too much energy. So you want to save the gas and go that way. So that's why all the launch pads go out over the ocean. And that's where we're going to be. We're going to be here on the river, and I'm going to point out the 4 active launch pads to you. Now, when I say active launch pads, we have 47 launch pads, but only 4 of them are active. And the reason we have so many is the Cold War. That's really what it was. So the first pad I'm going to point out, you have to go behind you a little bit. You guys see over that island, you can see a big water tower, a big white water tower, and a structure next to it. That's pad 39A. That's the most famous pad in the world. We're going to go out there, be in front of it in a while, but I wanted to point it out. Pad 41 is that big white building off in the distance with the 4 lightning towers next to it. That's an Atlas V launch pad. And they launch satellites for the government. The 4 lightning towers between the 2 gray buildings is pad 40. And that's SpaceX's other launch pad, and they launched there just about a week ago. And they'll launch again, I think, at the end of the month. And up where Mary Pat is the Delta IV launch pad, pad 37. And there is a rocket in that building. There is a Delta IV Heavy, which is the big configuration of the Delta IV. And they're going to launch that in July, so they're getting it ready. And it's going to go to the sun. They're sending a probe up there to the sun. It will take 7 years to get there. But it will tell them more about the sun than they've ever known before. So it really is an exciting mission. But that will launch in July, and that is a very big rocket. It is 5 million pounds of thrust. Saturn V is about 7.5, so it's very big. So if you happen to be in the area in July, then come on out. And over here on the right, I wanted to mention is Port Canaveral. That's a cruise port. You can see a cruise ship over there. Anybody on a cruise, by the way? Anybody? Sometimes we get some folks. But anyway, that's also a good spot to watch launches if you guys are ever here. You can just drive out there. It's free. You just go on out. It's pretty flat. You can see things pretty well. Cocoa Beach is a good spot. Cape Canaveral Beach. Any of those you can just go out to. We have areas on the property that if you want to buy a ticket to watch it, you can. But some areas you just go to. So just always like to give people options. We've had a very busy launch month. In April, we had 4 launches, which is very unusual. This past month, we had, I think, 2. And we may have 1 by the end of this month. But things are picking up, so. And we're going to turn around and take you guys up for your first stop. Now, when you get off the bus, you don't need to take everything with you. We're just here for a little while. And just to give you a chance to take some pictures and stuff. You may see some dolphins swimming by. We saw an alligator out here earlier today. We doubt he's still around here, but you never know. So there's pad 37, pad 40, 41, 39A off in the distance. 39A is about 7 miles from us. But this was a popular spot to watch shuttle launches. They used to bus people out here and they'd watch them. And people still come out here for launches from time to time. The good news is, in about 5 years, there will be 9 active launch pads. Several companies have come in and are taking over launch pads that haven't been used in a long time, and they're renovating them. And they're going to launch from over there on the Cape. We are limited. We only have room for 2 launch pads. That's all we ever built. NASA, that is, all 2 pads NASA ever built. The Air Force, which owns all of that, built the other 45. Now, a couple of things, if you guys would, stay on the concrete because we have a fire ant issue here. You don't want to get bitten by them. And secondly, you got to go through the fire ants to get near the water. I wouldn't recommend it because alligators are here. And it's illegal to feed the alligators with your body. Don't do that. So with that being said, anybody who'd like to come on out. This isn't a big stop, just a little while. Come on out.
Should we? Okay, we'll be out. Okay, we're out here. The sun is super bright. That's kind of cool. This is the tower over there that I showed. Something over there. There's another NASA building we passed earlier. You're over there. Another NASA thing over there. Yeah, that's about it. So the launching sites and all of that, so I'm going to pause the recording until we get back in the car. And we're back on the bus.
Alright folks, anybody come out and watch a shuttle launch? Anybody? In 30 years we launched it. Well, you guys certainly knew about it. And the shuttle was a great project, a great program. Launched it for 30 years. Now, of course, it's been retired. So what does that mean? Well, that means we no longer have a way to get astronauts to the space station, for one thing. So what do? Well, we have to buy a seat on another rocket. And they are the Russian Soyuz rockets that they launched from Kazakhstan. And we've been doing that for the past 8 years. Now, if you want to buy a seat on a Soyuz, it's just like buying a seat on an airline. Except the airline doesn't charge you $81 million. And the Russians do. Why? Largely because they can. and they've raised the price every year since they've been doing it. And that's, you know, that's their business. But things are changing. Now 2 companies have a contract to launch astronauts to the space station. And those companies are going to do it from here. And it won't cost us $81 million a seat. The 2 companies are Boeing and SpaceX. Now Boeing is going to launch from Pad 41 over there on an Atlas V. SpaceX will launch from 39A on a Falcon 9. And both of those companies want to test out the rocket, test out the capsule this year. They want to fly the capsule, see how it works. And they both, I don't know if this will happen, but they both want to have a crew member on the next flight and do it by the end of the year. So if that happens, that means we'll have manned spaceflight back here for the first time since 2011. And what are the benefits? Well, those jobs will stay here. Those launches will stay here. And it costs a whole lot less than the Russians charge. Less than half of what the Russians charge to take astronauts to the space station. So it's a big benefit to all around here. And for all the folks that like to come out and watch launches. So it gives us a choice, which is good. Choice is always good. So that will happen, hopefully, like I said, by the end of this year. I can't say that it will, but that's their objective. But several things can get in the way of that, so I don't want to be conclusive and say that's going to happen, but that's what they're shooting for. So anyway, we're going to take you guys up into the industrial area here in a minute. You guys see any gators over here? It's been pretty light on gators these past couple of days. You saw a baby one? Okay. They still bite the same, though, the baby ones, so you know that. Even though they're small or big, they still do the same thing. So but there's a couple of spots where we do see gators. So we continue to keep our eyes peeled. Mary Pat's really good about spotting them. She's our nature whisperer. All the critters, all the animals, they know her by name. So we're going to take you back through the industrial area a little bit, show you a couple of things, tell you what we're kind of doing, tell you what we're doing back here. We want to be 2 things, right? We've never been these 2 things. We want to be a multi-user spaceport. In other words, we want to do more than just NASA launches. That's all we ever did here. But now we want to expand that. We want other companies to launch here. They already do. SpaceX already does. And Blue Origin will. And so there are other companies coming here. But we also want to be a 21st century spaceport. A lot of this stuff is not 21st century. And that's what we have to change, because those companies are not going to come out here and operate with mid-20th century infrastructure. So that's not going to fly. So that's what we have to change about some of these buildings. And some of these buildings are historically important. Some of them are not. Some of them are old. Some of them are new. Some of them won't be here in a couple of years. We're tearing down a lot of things that we just don't use anymore. Now, to give you a little background, when the Apollo program was going on, we had 26,000 people working here. Wow. And now we have about half that many. And that's just technology, largely. Just because you need fewer people with all the electronics and technology we have. So, but the footprint's very, very big, and we don't need it to be this big anymore. So the SSPF was built in the 90s. It's not going anywhere. The ONC building is original, but a lot of people love this building. It's got a lot of history, so it's going to stay. And they've renovated it, and it's in pretty good shape, considering it's about 60 years old, or almost. Not quite, but almost there. So it's staying. Now, the little building over here, the shorter building, is where the Apollo astronauts trained. Now, no astronauts train here now. They all train in Houston. Now, that's all that's done there. But back in the Apollo days, the main crews and the backup crews, you would have seen them in there, learning all the things to do to go to the moon. Now, they still use the building, but they use it for robotics research now. And this facility over here, this gray metal bunch of buildings or towers and things here, this is called the test facility. Now, we have 2 launch pads, 39A, 39B. SpaceX is operating 39A, so we are going to use 39B. Now, we're going to launch our rockets from there, but we're also going to launch other companies' rockets from 39B. So we want to be able to replicate all the vibrations and effects that their rocket would have on the launch pad without using the actual launch pad. Saves wear and tear on the equipment. So we can do that there, and that's what we're going to do in the future. If anybody likes really super cold gases, Cryogenics Lab is over there. And we had a parachute fabrication facility here in one time. A lot of this stuff is left over from Apollo, a lot of it's left over from the shuttle program, and a lot of it, frankly, we just don't use anymore. And so a lot of these buildings are going to come down, and we're going to shrink the whole footprint down. Because if you noticed here, everything is really far away from each other, and you have to drive everywhere. Back in the 60s, that wasn't a big deal. You know, there were enough people where the buildings had to be far apart. Nowadays, they want everything closer in. And that's what they're trying to do, make it a little more ergonomic, make it a little more user-friendly. So in about 7 or 8 years, this place will look much different than it does now, which is good. It needs to happen. So we're going to take you guys past the big building over here. Now, if you guys knew what the space shuttle did, it was a big space truck, right? Took stuff up, brought stuff back. Now, when you take the payload out of the SSPF, whatever it is you're delivering to space, it comes out horizontally. But when you want to load it onto the shuttle, it's got to be vertical. So it's not going to get that way on its own, so you drive it into this building, and a big crane picks up the payload, sets it on its end. They strap it down, and then you drive it out to the pad standing up. They rotated the canister. That's what they do in there, and that's why they called it the cleverly named Canister Rotation Facility. Now, we still use this building, not for that anymore. The shuttle's been retired, but that building will stay. Solar farms, you guys have seen these before, nothing unusual. You guys have them probably in where you live, and we have a much bigger one elsewhere on the island here. But we're trying to be a little more environmentally aware, you know, as we all are since the 60s. We contaminate a lot of ground out here. And we're experimenting with different types of fuels and less toxic solvents and methods of propulsion, and even methods of propulsion that don't have any emissions at all. That's really one of the big things we have to work on, because if we want to go to deep space, by the time you guys want to go out to Alpha Centauri, you can't carry enough fuel with you, so you have to have some other method. So we're working on that. But you guys are the right age to go to Mars. You know that? We're going to get there by 2040, so anybody your age to about 17. Would you like to go? All right, let me give you the bad news first. Takes 9 months, no internet. All right, yeah, well, you're thinking about it. You're down with that. All right, we like your spirit. All right. Kind of a fun story about the gas station here. You guys see the gas station. Now, when we got here in 1961, a long time ago, there was a gas station here. Not much else, but there was a gas station. Now, fast forward to this year, there's still a gas station, run by the same family. They were here before we were here. And we are their only customers, because you have to work here to drive here. So they're it. That's the only gas station within about 20 miles. So we are always nervous when they're not open. And today, I think they're closed. So anyway, in about, like I said, about 8 years, this headquarters building, that's coming down. About 19 other buildings are coming down because they're old. I mean, they have asbestos issues, the air conditioning doesn't work right, the windows leak, that kind of thing. Doesn't hold enough people. So, new buildings will be built, or in other cases, they won't be built at all, and we'll just kind of rebuild this whole quadrant here so it's more user-friendly. We're going to take you guys out to the launch pads, tell you about the nature part of our tour. Now, like I showed you on the map, we have 140,000 acres out here. That's a lot of land. Now, how much of this do we use? About 8% of it. So what's the rest of this? Wildlife refuge. We are the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, in addition to everything else here. So there are all kinds of animals out here, all kinds. And we may see some. If you're out here in the early morning or out here at dusk, you'll see black bears and bobcats and coyotes, Florida panthers, and feral hogs and wild turkeys and all kinds of things. You do. You really, really do. Now, in the heat of the day, they kind of hide out. You don't see it much, but they are here. This is our communication office. This is where we talk to other NASA facilities. Now, one of the things they're working on our journey to Mars is communication. Because you guys know when we went to the moon, right, that's 250,000 miles away. When they were talking to each other on radio, it took about a second or two to get the transmission back and forth. On Mars, that transmission takes 20 minutes. That's a long way. So that's a lot can go wrong in that 20 minutes. So they have to speed up the method of communication between the astronauts on Mars and mission control. So they're working on that, different methods of sending voice data through space. So that's one of the many things they have to work on. There's a billion of them, but that's just one of them. So anyway, let's see here. We're going to be driving down the road. This is where you might see those animals. You see a lot of birds. We have American bald eagles. We got a big old bald eagle's nest coming up, you'll see. And also out here, SpaceX. You guys know who SpaceX is? Elon Musk, you know, they're a big company, flew the big flew the sports car into space. You remember that in February? Okay. They're here. And you're going to drive by their pad. But they're building a big new facility out on this side of the road. And they're going to put up a big tower. And they're going to have a launch control center in there. That's where they launch the rockets over on 39A and 40. So they're going to be able to see it from way up there. They're going to put a rocket garden in. They're going to put a big hangar where they can refurbish rockets and stuff. That's all going in here. It's going to be huge right on this side of the road. It's a little further up, but it's going to be in between the visitor complex and the VAB. So they just announced that yesterday. So it will take a few years to build, but you'll be able to, maybe we'll get it on part of the tour and you'll be able to go and see what they're up to. SpaceX, very dynamic company, doing a lot of very innovative things, and it's exciting to be around them. Alrighty, so we're coming up on the Eagle's Nest. It's going to be on the left side of the bus, on the left side of these electric poles, and you'll see a big pine tree up ahead, and you'll see a big, what looks like a basket in the middle of the tree. That's the nest. Now the nest is really big and it's really old. When I say old, I mean it was here when we got here. We got here in 1961, so it was here already. So it could be 100 years old. We're not really sure. You guys see it up there? Some of you guys will see it. The rest of you will in a minute. Yeah, it's a big basket right there in the crotch of the tree. Yep, that's it. And that nest has been there for a long time, and it weighs about 800 pounds. Now the eagles are not here. They've left for the summer. They go up into the mountains in the Carolinas and hang out there. And then they'll come back in the fall. There it is, that's it. Pretty big, isn't it? Very big. We have about 21 of them out here. But that's the biggest and oldest one. So the eagles will return in September. Hopefully start a new family out there. But that's the only one you can see from the road, so we always like to point it out. And we've got some nice weather today. We were expecting a little rainier weather, but we got lucky in that regard, so enjoy it. And we're coming up on the VAB. There's a lot of buildings and things there to see, but what I want you guys to do is be a little acquainted with what you're going to look at. So we got a little video I'll play for you. Take a look. You see on the front is 21 stories tall. The VAB is where everything comes together before a launch. The Apollo and Space Shuttle vehicles were assembled for flight in the VAB. This cavernous facility contains 4 huge bays where the spacecraft were assembled using massive overhead bridge cranes for highly complex maneuvers. Today, the VAB is being updated to assemble our next human-rated launch vehicle, the Space Launch System, or SLS. The SLS is the most powerful rocket in history and has an evolvable design that ranges from 321 to 384 feet tall, depending on mission requirements. This rocket will someday help NASA to reach its goal of human exploration of Mars. The large tower next to the VAB is the mobile launcher being built for SLS. When completed, it will carry the massive launch vehicle on top of the crawler transporter to pad 39B. You will learn more about the launch of SLS when we get to the launch pad. Adjacent to the VAB is the Launch Control Center, the distinctively shaped 4-story building which houses the launch team. This is where the ground controllers, engineers, and launch director monitor the spacecraft and manage all the activities leading up to launch. guys are looking at the big bay doors. Those are big garage doors, and that's where the spacecraft comes rolling out when they take it out to the pad. Those are the biggest doors in the world, by the way. These are the old orbiter processing facilities. That's where they tow the shuttle when it landed. They bring them in those buildings. There are 3 of them. Boeing has taken all 3 of them over because the shuttle no longer flies, so they've leased them. And that's, again, our multi-user spaceport idea. And those are the crawlers. You guys have seen those in the movies. Those are the transporters that take the spacecraft out to the launch pad. And they are the world's largest tracked vehicles. Each of them weighs 6 million pounds. And when we get a little closer, you can see the driver's cab. That's that glass box on the end. And there's one diagonal to it on the other side. The crawler is like a big trolley. It goes to and from the pad, back and forth. And it transports the spacecraft and the platform it launches from. Each of those treads weighs a ton. There's the driver's box. They work standing up. Usually they drive for about an hour and then someone else takes over. They say it's like driving nothing else in the world. Not like a tank, not like a plane, not like a boat, not like a car, not like a truck. It's one of a kind. And what does it transport? Well, it transports the mobile launch platform up ahead here. This is what we use for Apollo and for the shuttle. And these pedestals are the same height as the ones on the launch pad. So you can see this was what it would look like on the pad, except there's no big hole in the ground for a flame trench. So the rocket would be on top of it and it would launch from here. Now, when the time comes, the way the crawler works, when they would drive under here, they would lift this platform up, drive it into the front, the east side of the building, and they deposit this platform on another set of pedestals. They make the spacecraft to it. The crawler comes under it, lifts the whole thing up, drives it out to the pad. So the crawler not only transports this, it transports this and the spacecraft all the way out to the pad. And that weighs 9 million pounds. The spacecraft weighs 6 million, so that's 15 million. And the crawler only weighs 6, so it's carrying like 3 times its own weight. But it does. That's what it did in the Apollo and shuttle days. This is what it's going to do in the future. This is going to be used for the new rocket they're building. This is the mobile launcher. What's the difference between the two? Well, fundamentally, there isn't. This is, again, a platform just like the other one, except this has a tower, has fueling arms, access arms, all of the things you need for a launch. You bring it out to the pad with you. So you don't need a tower out on the pad like 39A has. So when you see 39B, there is no tower there. Everything will come out in one piece. So the crawler takes all of it out, and that weighs 10.5 million pounds. And that spacecraft will weigh about 6.5 million. So again, the crawler will drive under here, lift this up, drive it into the bay, set it on pedestals, they make the spacecraft to it, the crawler comes out, lifts it out, and takes it away. You can see some tracks that the crawler made when they were driving it back into its parking space over there. And the other bay doors, these are bays 1 and 3. These were used almost exclusively because these face east. The other doors face west. They were never used very much. These were facing closer to the pad. And that's basically it. And those panels take about 45 minutes to raise all the way up if you wanted to raise them all. They don't do it very often, but they do sometimes. And you guys can see the 3 little doors in the middle. Those are mouse doors. Those are people doors. They're spacecraft doors. And the Launch Control Center, that's where the firing room is. That's where they press the button to launch the spacecraft. Where you've seen in the movies, you know, where we don't really press the big red button anymore. We don't do that. Computers launch themselves, basically. Unless you tell them not to. And a lot of you folks are wondering where all the famous people are, if you've seen them in the movies and all that stuff, where the big countdown clock is. Well, that's right over there. We're gonna get another view of it in a minute. So once we turn left up there at the stop sign, see where the flagpole is? Now, if you look underneath it, you'll see a big blue box, and the big blue box is the countdown clock, and that's been on every space movie, every space television show ever made. And that is where you'd see the presidents and the senators and congressmen and all the big shots, astronauts' families, celebrities, things like that.
It's hard to see, but
And the press buildings are the buildings in the back. You can see them. That's where the media would be. years I was in that media. So you can see the countdown clock right there. So that's where you'd see all the, that's the closest spot to the launch pads. Nobody gets any closer to 39A and B than that. That's 3.5 miles away. The minimum safe distance is that. And so, that's a really prime viewing area. So this is the crawler way. This is how the crawler gets from the VAB to the launch pad. It's about 130 feet wide. It's about 7 feet deep, different layers of fill, because you have to be able to distribute all that huge weight you're carrying and let it be level. Now the crawler did not get its name by being really zippy. The crawler does 1 mile an hour. Now it's hard to conceive of. It's mesmerizingly slow. When you see it moving, you almost think it isn't, but it is. It is the slowest thing on the earth carrying the fastest thing on the earth. That's really true. That's basically what it is. So it takes about 9 hours to get from that building to pad A. It's a long day. It takes 12 hours to get to pad B, just because there's a curve involved in the road, so it takes longer to get out there. But SpaceX, by the way, who operates 39A, they are there exclusively now. You will not see their spacecraft coming out on the crawler because they don't use the VAB. They don't integrate vertically at all. In other words, they don't get their rockets ready standing on their end. They get them ready lying on their side. And they do that in their own hangar, which is up here. So when they're ready, they'll roll it out of the hangar and they lift it up with this big piece of equipment called a strong back, and then they launch. So they will process all of their rockets in the building. We will continue to use the crawler and the VAB and all that, but SpaceX won't. And SpaceX will launch the Falcon Heavy from here in the fall. And that big Falcon Heavy is quite the sight. The 2 of the first stages come back to Earth. It's really kind of neat when it went up in February. And they're going to launch it again in the fall, and in early 2019, they have a customer they're going to send a satellite up there on. No more sports cars in space, though, from what I'm told. So they won't be doing that again. It was fun, though. You guys are going to see the launch pads you saw a couple of minutes ago, but you'll see them from a lot closer at this angle up here. And we'll proceed over to pad 39A. Just so we can get a look at them. So you can see, you'll see pad 37, pad 40, 41. These are what we call the Cape launch pads. And if you guys wanted to come out and watch a launch, if you ever wanted a really good spot to view it, that big gray structure over there is called the observation gantry. And when they have a Cape launch over here, you buy a ticket there, and it's really, you know, you're pretty close. You're about 3 miles from some of these pads. So that's a really good spot to watch. So it's something if you want to come out here sometime. 37, 40, 41. Now we're too close to 39A and B. They wouldn't have you out here for that, but that's just because it's too close. But over there, that's a good spot to go. They bring food out there and stuff. It's kind of nice. We're going to proceed on to 39A, the most famous launch pad in the world. Everybody that ever set foot on the moon, left from right here.
SpaceX.
And you can see SpaceX's hangar there. That was put up about 4 years ago. SpaceX, of course, is an American company run by Elon Musk, who's South African, but he is an American citizen. Uses all American parts in their rockets. They do some very innovative things, reusable rockets. Who thought that was going to happen? Not me, but they did. And they are doing it on a regular basis. Coming up with a couple of new rockets. The Falcon Heavy, of course, is big, but there's an even bigger one in the pipeline that they're getting ready to build in Southern California as we speak. And the couple of first stages are in that hangar right now. They're getting ready for some launches in the future. And you can see the strong bag, actually. You'll see it when we get a little better view of the pad. When you look at the bottom of the pad, you'll see a big, what looks like a big crane arm, a big white arm. That's the strong bag, and that lifts the rocket up. They'll roll it out of the building up the ramp and lift it. Now the pad is elevated. You may wonder why that is. Well, if we dig a hole in the ground for a flame trench here, you know the water table is really high, so we're going to get water seeping into it, so we have to keep it dry. Ironically, to flood it, but we need to keep it dry the rest of the time, so we built up to build down. That's why it's about 45 feet off the ground. And the water tower is where we store the water that we flood the flame trench with. And the reason we do that is sound suppression. Not for sound to your ears, but vibration. So the spacecraft and the launch tower don't start shaking apart. Because if you didn't, it would. Sound is a very, very important consideration here. And that is where everybody went to the moon, right there, that launch pad. That's the only place on Earth that we launched people to another place not on Earth. And this pad is very big. It's about a mile in perimeter. So you can imagine why SpaceX is looking for a launch pad. They don't want to have to build their own. They're really expensive. This one cost $20 million to build in 1961. So they came out here and the pad's all ready to go. And what happens? Well, we lease the pad to them, and the pad gets used, because the saddest thing in the world is for a pad to just sit idle, because we pay for it every day. It sits there not doing something. So when somebody's doing something, that defrays the cost of other things that we're doing. So it's a little more efficient way to use the property, so it's not sitting empty. 39B will do the same thing. Here's the strong back, that white object there. And that's where SpaceX will launch to the space station, hopefully by the end of the year, with a crew member. And over here on the right, you guys saw these launch pads. The one closest to you is pad 41. Further back, pad 40, 37 in the distance. And that's where Boeing will launch to the space station when they get their astronauts ready, when the capsule's ready. That's where they're going to launch from. SpaceX right from over there. We're up here by the Atlantic Ocean. This road up ahead here, this T intersection, the road is kind of famous. Anybody see the right stuff? Anybody see that? You know, the astronauts, they all like to race their cars around. They did. I mean, most of them drove Corvettes. They'd race them right on that road back in the old days and on into the 70s and things like that. So this was their own private drag strip here. You know, we have 43 miles of beach out here, just uninterrupted. No people, no condos, no gift shops, just the people that work out here and the animals. So it's very, very nice. We're going to give you guys another viewpoint of another angle of pad 39A up here, where you can take some pictures, and then we'll go off to our second stop. Might see some gopher tortoises out here. We saw some earlier today. Although when it gets hot, everybody slows down. And this is the old A1A. Any of you Floridians out here was a gopher tortoise? Yeah, I just saw it too. Here's another one. They're out here. Could see some more, could see some vultures and things like that. There's a lot of those out here. So we're going to let you guys take some pictures up ahead here, just so you can get another angle. Because they're making some changes to the pad. You can see the cranes and all the construction and stuff that's going on. They're taking some stuff down and putting some other stuff up. So if you guys like to take a picture, you can stand up and take a picture if you like.
Stand up.
Since we're stopped. All right. All right. All right, I think we're good. All right, we're going to take you guys to our second stop. Now, you guys are going to be 5,000 feet from this pad, 5,000 feet from the other pad. And if you were ever out here before, pad A and B used to look identical to each other. They don't anymore. That's by design. We deliberately did that. And you guys, we got another gopher tortoise over there. Cactus, oh, beautiful cactus. Yeah, it was. It was pretty. So we're going to take you guys up to the next stop, which is a riser. You guys will be out over the ocean. And there's a camera up there. We call it a camera stop because there's a big trailer that carts a camera up there that they film launches. And there's also a porta potty here at the middle stop on the ground if you need it. And there's some plaques that commemorate all the launches that left from pad A. And on the other side, you'll see plaques that commemorate all the launches that left from pad B. And there's an old bunker up here that they used back in the old days to house a generator, but now they don't use the generator anymore, but they left the bunker, so it's just kind it's a beautiful view. Nice view of the ocean you'll have. Now, the one thing I will ask, especially the young folks, don't climb over any ropes or chains or anything out there. Just stay behind those ropes and chains and stuff, and we'll be good. Because there's some electric equipment up there. You don't want anybody getting hurt. We'll be there in about a minute, not even. Then we'll proceed over to Pad B. There we go. Yeah, these folks up there will be coming down in a minute, so.
Sorry about the blurriness.
Yeah, they're coming down.
The camera is
So you might see
good,
some
but
folks
soon I'll be
crossing
getting a
your path on the way.
new camera, and it'll be a lot better. I'm gonna be getting a new phone.
But it's nice to look out at the ocean. And again, we have some portalets there if anybody needs them. That is our only set of those here, so.
Gonna go out there and we'll be there in just a second.
All right, folks, if you'd like to, come on out.
Here's the filming thing. Camera stand. It's an oversized load.
Queens, oh yeah, I worked in Woodside. I'm very cool. Yeah.
Yes. SpaceX. Yeah. Small building and yeah. I think we're gonna go and get back on the bus, and we'll be there in just a second.
Got to sit down there, guys. Okay, thank you. Everybody got their seat? There we go. Okay. Now, you guys may wonder what this object here in the gravel is. It's called a field mill. And what it does is measure static electricity. Now, why do we do that? Well, spacecraft, if there is enough static electricity in the air, spacecraft can attract and create its own lightning. How do we know this? We know this because it actually happened. Apollo 12 was hit by lightning twice. When they went up in 1969, right over there on Pad A, and that knocked their instruments right out. They had no readings at all. These guys going to the moon didn't know how to get there. And if you're going to the moon, it's a good idea to have instruments that'll tell you how to get there. So what happened was there was an engineer on the ground who knew the system well enough to be able to get the astronaut systems back up. And they went to the moon, everything was fine. But the static electricity caused the problem. So immediately after that, we put those field mills in. So now we know when there's an issue with static electricity, so we don't have problems like that. And we never did, again. But weather does affect things out here. We do have, normally the weather's pretty nice, as you can see. But we do have, vagary in the weather. And the saddest weather-related story to happen here at the Space Center happened right here on Pad B, and that was Challenger. Now, Challenger, which we lost in 1986, what you might not know about Challenger was it was supposed to launch twice before. It was scrubbed twice, which means it was delayed. Now that happens a lot, that's nothing unusual. But the night of the third attempt, it got very cold here. And I mean cold like down in the 20s. Like a few folks in Florida know it never gets that cold here, but it did that day in January, late January 1986. And there was frost on the ground, frost on the trees, frost on the orbiter. It had been below freezing for the better part of the night. By launch time, it was about 35, but you got to remember the large part of the spacecraft was basically frozen for a few hours. And those components are only designed to work within a certain range of temperatures. After that, you don't know how well they're going to work. But there is what we call mission pressure, and that is the urge to get this orbiter off the ground, right? The longer it sits on the ground, the more people are anxious to get it going. First of all, it was delayed twice, and that gets the pressure going. And secondly, the first teacher in space was on that flight, Kristen McCullough. And 11,000 teachers applied to be that person. So there were a lot of school kids all over the world. Maybe you guys were kids yourself, when they had that. You were in the classroom, they bring the TVs in. So they did launch, and we all know what happened. 73 seconds up over where we lost that crew. And as a result, the weather was partially to blame for that responsible. So, as a result, we would never launch in weather conditions like that again. We never have. We never had weather conditions like that. But again, we like to think we make it safer for the subsequent crews. Now, on a happier note, John Glenn left from here in 1998 when he went up. Remember when he was the oldest man in space? Remember that? He left from right over here. And he was 77 then. And he passed away about 2 years ago almost. He was 95. So he did a nice long life there. And from all accounts, a very nice man. A couple of folks I know have met him. And they said he was a very pleasant fellow. So, Pad B is going to be our pad of the future. We're going to launch the new spacecraft from there. And there's a picture of it on page 4 if you guys want to look at it. Looks like a cross between a Saturn V and a shuttle. And this will be our heavy lift vehicle. This will go to deep space, ultimately around the moon. They're going to build a station around the moon. They're talking about that. And then ultimately they're going to go to Mars, where some in your age will be walking around up there at some point in time, right? You're going to be a little older yet, but you will. And so that's going to be about 2040. So this is a very big rocket. This is more powerful than a Saturn V. Not as tall, but more powerful. So that will launch in 2020 from right over there. So maybe you want to come out for that. Let's see who's in Gator Pond today. Haven't seen much, I got to be honest with you. Not many gators here lately. When it gets really hot, they tend to hide out. So, and of course, you guys have probably noticed it's pretty hot. Not as hot as it's gonna get, of course, in Florida here in the summertime, but pretty hot. And these are the flame diverters. These are the big plates that direct the exhaust of the rocket into the flame trench. Now they got to get resurfaced. They have a protective surface put on them that keeps them from getting melted by the 6,000 degree solid rocket boosters. 6,000 degrees is pretty hot. That's Florida in August, so that's pretty hot. So it gets close to that here. So they're going to put them back in the flame trench when the time comes. So a lot of folks ask about the SLS, what is the rocket, what does it do, where's it going to go? So we got a little video that talks to you about the SLS and how it's going to work. So take a look. System is an all-new heavy-lift rocket that uses a combination of proven hardware and technology to make it more affordable. We can take the best of all we've learned from building rockets and combine that with cutting-edge tooling and manufacturing technology to build the most powerful rocket in history. You can fly to really high orbits around the moon with this rocket without requiring any other assistance. But when we add an upper stage, we'll have an even bigger capacity.
The larger evolved version of SLS can carry a habitat, larger solar array, additional propulsion, you name it. It's really a versatile rocket.
astronaut in low Earth orbit, we need a new crew vehicle, Orion.
The Orion spacecraft is a conical shape, like Apollo was. But it's actually larger than Apollo, and is capable of taking people farther into space than ever before. It can protect a crew of 4 for up to 21 days. It can carry food, air, water, supplies, all the things to improve them. Orion is the most advanced and versatile spacecraft ever made. It uses state-of-the-art technology, materials, and design processes based on more than 50 years of research and technology development.
The first crewed flight of Orion and the Space Launch System will be a flight around the Moon during Exploration Mission 2. A crew of astronauts will launch on SLS, fly several orbits around the Earth, then perform a translunar injection, which will send them on a path from Earth orbit towards the Moon.
Once the crew gets near the Moon, Orion will pass within 60 miles of the surface, and from there, Orion can enter into a high lunar orbit, several thousand miles from the surface.
There's a coyote back there.
The tools, the knowledge, and the experience that we have at our disposal today come from nearly 50 years of space exploration, and ultimately benefit lives here on Earth.
Who knows what will come out of the scientific knowledge, discovery, and economic opportunity that result from deep space exploration.
We just hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of human exploration. Now we need to explore deep space. To me, that's the goal, to expand humanity's presence beyond the Earth. Exploring beyond has a deeper purpose, and it is a bolder mission than anything we've ever done before.
I believe that people still look to NASA and the United States for leadership in space.
It takes courage and resolve and commitment. And when we leave Earth to explore our solar system, it will not be as any one nation or culture, but as citizens of Earth for all of humanity.
Well, there you go. That's a little pricey on what they hope to do with the SLS, so hopefully by the time they launch that rocket in 2020, you guys, it won't have a crew on it right away, but you guys will come out and catch one of those. It'll be a big rocket when it does go. Now we're going to be heading out to our next stop. And by the way, the big doors there, the big building, if you've ever wondered how big it is, how many, anybody ever see a Major League ballpark? Anybody been to one, like Yankee Stadium? You could fit it on the roof and have an acre left over. You could put Parliament on the footprint of the building. It sits on 8 acres. And those big doors, if you open them all the way up, each of those panels weighs 32 tons. There's the breast side again. Now, somebody was asking you, what do you feel from this location? Well, you can feel the vibrations under your feet at 3.5 miles, but you can also feel the heat on your face at 3.5 miles away. But the best part is you see the sound wave coming at you, because it travels, 700 miles an hour, and it takes a while to get to you. So it ripples the water as it's making its way back towards you, and then the concussion hits you, it rattles all your badges and stuff. It's pretty awesome, I got to admit. Ferris Bueller said it best, if you have the means, I highly recommend going right over there. And the bigger the rocket, the more the effect. So the big Space Launch System will be really, 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 a lot of shaking going on when that happens. So yeah, if you can scramble up an invite over there, you will not be disappointed. So we're going to take you guys over to the VAB. You're going to be right in front of the building. That, by the way, is our front door right there. That's called the low bay. That's where they bring all the parts in, and then they stack them up in the high bay. You guys are going to see the escape abort system for the Orion capsule. You'll see the actual access arm from 39A that the astronauts used when they got into the shuttle. They walked across that walkway. The crew rescue vehicle, and if you ever wondered how big the stars and stripes are up on the wall, we have a little section of it over here. You guys can see it. Folks are often amazed. It's a really hard thing to describe, so we decided to put it there so you can see it. And again, this is our next to last stop. This is not our final stop. So you folks, yeah, you'll be on this bus. You guys know which one you're on, so they'll be pulling out of there in a minute. So, but come on out if you like, folks.
Okay, we'll be out there in just a second. Okay, we're out here, and this giant painted flags, and there appears to be some kind of a tank-like thing. Some kind of an escape bunker truck. We used to see the launch from closer up, and to what seems to be the tip of the rocket. Right here. Yeah, it's the tip of the rocket. And then over there is a crane. Did you know? Blah blah blah. It's like a crane thing. So I'm gonna have some points where you guys can pause the video and read some of these things. So just to You're supposed to pause the video a minute ago.
Thank you. Very nice. You're welcome.
Okay.
In an air-conditioned building, but just hold.
Everything the shuttle was easy. Everything was 6. The platform was 6. The pilot was 6. Shuttle was 6.
Space shuttles were pretty slow.
What?
Okay. And then it's a tip of the rocket again, like I showed you. Okay. 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 And yeah, that's all the signs. So I think we are being ordered to go back on the bus. Just a machine here, whatever. See, it's on the signs. And yeah, we're gonna get back on the bus, and I'll be back in just a second. I'm sorry, for battery purposes, I may not be able to record the bus ride to the next stop, but I will record the next stop. My phone just needs some time to charge because it's at like 10% power. So yeah, see you guys there. It turns out that was the last stop. So we're gonna walk around, find something cool, and then I will videotape that. See you guys in a bit. This huge room with all these rockets. There's a rocket there, there's a rocket there. Right when you look at these rockets. Sorry if you see this, but every battery packs it, but it's so low body. There's a rocket here. I'm gonna do a quick little overview because I don't want to waste a ton of battery here. So yeah, so the rocket's up there. Whoa, and then there's a rocket here. And then there's a painting over there. There's a gift shop, which I will be going in. Snoopy, Space Snoopy. And then there's a rocket there that I guess it's a landed rocket. Some propeller stuff over there. Records, I guess. Different stuff. And then there's, yeah, that's about it.
If you look right here, that's the lid right there. That's how.
It's over here. Oh, this is the inside of the rocket.
You can feel the speed-air pressure relationship when you stick your hand out of a car window while the car is moving at higher speed.
It's amazing from here. That's the basics of this room. So
there's different stages of this room.
So I'm gonna pause the recording until we find something else cool. It's a real space capsule. This huge. It's humongous. Makes it kind of hard to see on camera, but it's a moon rock. It's a Spanish moon rock. It's another piece of moon rock. And then pause the video and watch that. Read that. Arms, I guess. Then there's a bunch of different suits. So it's this suit, which has the arms of this. In my opinion, that's the coolest one, that second one. And there's that one, which is leathery kind of thing. And then there's the last one, which is more of a modern kind of thing, kind of. And then there is that 100% modern version, which is like a space that someone would wear nowadays. And then casts of the people in the power. There's gloves. Sorry. Lighting.
Oh, there's their camera.
It's a flat camera.
That's their television camera.
Sample thing, and then there's just a suit. Yeah. That's about everything cool in this room. So yeah, I'm gonna pause the video again and I'll come back when there's something else cool. This is the real Atlantis spaceship. Yeah, it's the real Atlantis spaceship, and it is awesome. There's a spacesuit, then there's a telescope. So it's the real Atlantis spaceship. So we're gonna pause the video and we'll be back in a little bit. JK, there's a bunch of cool things here. we did come back in a little bit. There's a rocket down there, and a bunch of cool things. There's an astronaut, something over there, something there, something there. There's the wing. Cool things. So I'm going to pause the recording and we'll be back in just a little bit. And first of all, when flying a spaceship, always remember to turn off everything. It is very important about that. I'm going to turn that off and all these things off. Done. You push the pedals, and then it goes. That's how you drive a spaceship. Here's a better view of the spaceship here. Everyone's getting out their phones to take pictures. There's an arm, there's a space gun, there's a bunch of stuff here. It's awesome. Well, we're gonna keep walking and find something else cool. So it seems astronauts don't wear shoes, so we're gonna go through this place. Lose my battery pack. This place is super small.
Shit, you know I'm savage. It's okay, you can go. Well, thanks. Do this. Well, literally, it's kind of fun. Is there a... What? What is it? That's cool. It's not even scary. I can just walk right through this without even dying. I'm looking down. I'm not even... Oh, jeez. Oh, I'm going back
That's what space people do, I guess. They go through weird tubes. So, yeah, that's the thing there. Anyway, that kind of concludes our day here at this place. But it's not the end of the video, because right after this, we're gonna go to Cocoa Beach. And I'm gonna do a video there because I have my waterproof case. I got that, and yeah, I'm not sure how much battery I have, but I'm gonna charge it up. And yeah, I'm gonna have that already, and I'm gonna do a little YouTube video there. So I'm gonna make that a separate video because this video is already kind of long. I'm sorry about how long it is, but it was worth it to see the whole bus ride. It's a really cool bus tour thing. So yeah, that concludes the video. And see you guys later. Well, see you guys in a bit because I'm going to Cocoa Beach. But yeah. Before I go, I have to say please subscribe to my channel, become ViperCraft44. I'll be coming out with an intro and an outro soon. I'm going to make that right when I get home. So yeah, subscribe to my channel. And bye guys. Sorry guys, I know I said that was the end of the video, but I just got home. I'm sorry I didn't do the video at the pool thing, beach, Cocoa Beach, because the water was really murky. I couldn't see in it with goggles, and it was just like, it would be really hard to record. I tried it there, and it was just really bad, so I didn't do a little YouTube video there. I just wanted to explain why in this video, so don't try and find one, because there isn't one for me. So, yeah, anyway, yeah, see you in the video. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to Cats for Life channel. Subscribe to mine first. Become a ViperCraft44. and then maybe think about becoming a wildcat for life. Maybe do it. Don't, though. Just kidding. Sorry, wildcats for life. Anyway, yeah, that's the end of the video. Subscribe to my channel, come to Vipercraft44. Click the notification bell to get notified of new videos and all that. And see you guys later. Bye!